enlightened state, and also in the Sangha, in the community, practicing such teachings in solidarity with the inspiration of that enlightened state. Today it's my great honor to stand before members of the Nepalese Association of Connecticut to, in fact, pay respect to the birth and traditionally also the occasions of the Enlightenment and the Mahaparinirvana, or the awakened death of Shakyamuni Buddha, also known as Prince Siddhartha Gautama, and famous in our traditions as we say the best of bipeds, the greatest of all beings who has ever walked on 2 feet or 2 legs. Of course, this is special inspiration and significance for me personally, as I have not only formed deep bonds of friendship with so many members of the community, but also, this is over the past decade and a half, but also developed respect for the beautiful and noble Nepalese culture, a tapestry of traditions woven together of the 2 great world religions of Sanatana Dharma, the eternal truth that is found in the beating heart of Hinduism, and Buddha Dharma, the awakened truth and reality sought by followers on the marga or path shown by Lord Buddha. And of course, the very historical and world-changing fact of the Buddha's birth at Lumbini on the plains of western Nepal is the event at the core of this weaving of traditions. As we all know, all Nepalese honor Lord Buddha. For Buddhists, he is the one in this age who leads us through the Buddha Vajana, his voice, the living teachings. For Hindus, he is the 9th and notably the most recent avatar of Lord Vishnu. And since we are now in a temple dedicated to Lord Vishnu, that is cause for joy and celebration for all Hindus present. I think this word, avatara, or avatar as we say avatar in English today, of course, too, is a good segue, a good transition to talk about how Lord Buddha came into the world. Because it literally in Sanskrit means descent, or coming down, going down. While religious and practicing Buddhists are not focused on a connection between God, Vishnu, and Buddha as such, they do commemorate the descent or coming down of the mind stream or consciousness of the great Bodhisattva 10 lunar months earlier to the Virgin Queen Mayadevi, consort of King Shuddhodana from the Tushita heaven. Mayadevi had had a dream in which she had been spiritually teleported to Lake Anutata in the Himalayas by 4 devas, or heavenly beings. The devas bathed the queen and adorned her with flowers, at which point, in this amazing dream, a white elephant holding a white lotus flower in his trunk circumambulated her 3 times and entered her womb through her right side. It is said of the Buddha Dharma that the teachings are good in the beginning, good in the middle, and good in the end. And that might be a good way of thinking about a holiday such as this as well. Some days ago, my good friend and Nepalese brother, Ringu Shrestha, graciously invited me to give a talk. Although this holiday is celebrated in a variety of different dates across Asia, I knew it was being commemorated last weekend throughout South Asia, and at the time I was feeling physically ill. And I was kind of heartbroken because I didn't think I would be able to speak on the occasion. So I feel very blessed that the day was scheduled for today, our gathering today, and I'm able to be here in front of you and share some ideas. Good in the beginning, good in the middle, and good in the end, from a spiritual perspective, might also be a good way of seeing both the holiday on the one hand of Buddha Purnima, Buddha Jayanti, and our lives in general in their true potential. For when we consider that we are at once honoring the birth, enlightenment, and awakened death of Lord Buddha, we might understand a beacon or lighthouse for how we ourselves can lead our own lives. So, for example, last week I was sick, and this week I'm feeling very happy and well. The Buddha taught us the truth of impermanence and the importance of non-attachment, considering this impermanence of all things. Each moment then becomes a new moment of birth for each of us if we consider it properly. By the same token, we can understand in the idea here the very practical side of our innermost divine nature. Our true potential is to be fully enlightened and awake. When the Buddha realized his true nature, he touched the earth. The most concrete gesture of arguably the most practical person who ever lived. Because he was radiant and shining with light, but at the time, there were those around him asking him, "Are you a god? What kind of being are you?" Some kind of amazing being. And they weren't sure what he was. And he said in response simply, "I am awake." The example he sets for us is to be conscious and to be present in every moment of our lives. We do not know if we will have a more or less awakened life and death, but we can strive at every moment to honor the jewel of our inner Buddha nature and to do the best we can. In some sense, that phrase, do the best you can, is a way of capturing a lot of what this tradition is about, properly understood. In many ways, it's really the hardest thing to do the best we can, because we could strive. We cannot go beyond what we can attain. At the same time, sometimes we are selling ourselves short. We do not strive to our full potential. So it's actually very difficult to be the best we can. Not a simple thing at all. Very difficult. So there are two sentences I wanted to share just because it can shed a lot of light on the occasion we have before us today as an opportunity to honor teachings of Lord Buddha, and also just to reflect on our lives. One is this statement, we want to, the idea of calming the mind in order to see the real. So this statement again, I'll say it again, calming the mind to see the real. This sentence is kind of a very concise guide to the whole Buddhist path. On the one hand, it captures the two sides of Buddhist contemplation. On the one hand, shamatha, or tranquility meditation, and also we say vipassana, or insight meditation. We cannot have insight of the highest kind unless we first have a tranquil state, peaceful state of mind. And yet to be peaceful and tranquil without penetrating insight, we have a similar tradition kind of divide. We have bhakti and jnana in Hinduism. We need two sides of the coin. We needed tranquility and also insight. We need both. And so in this tradition, we say if we cultivate our lives as an expression of calming the mind in order to see the real, we can actually achieve the highest and most advanced state of being a human being. Within the Buddhist tradition, there's lots of debates about what that state actually is and how to attain it. But basically, there's some agreement that we can make fantastic progress if we have as our goal the ultimate kind of purpose of full awakening or enlightenment. Now, the second sentence I mentioned, I want to share it with you. It's a saying in Tibetan that can be translated as drive on the horse of awareness with a whip of presence. In those few words can be found both the most profound and accessible essence of the teachings of Lord Buddha. So think of it this way in a sense. Before we came into this room today, before we entered the room, there was already a primordial awareness in the room. Some kind of holy mind, some kind of sacred consciousness was in the room. And the more scientific among us might doubt such things from time to time. That is our human nature to question. But if we really explore in a very quiet but careful way, we can see it's true. We can think of this sacred consciousness as being always here, always available to us, and then our task is to meet that with our own consciousness. Drive on the horse of awareness with a whip of presence. Our own presence, the state of being here consciously, is required to engage in the most fundamental yet highest form of yoga, union of integrating consciousness with conscious reality. To many, it may not sound very exciting to say that Buddhism is really just all about not being distracted. That's kind of boring sounding, just don't be distracted. But really, if you think about this idea of one breath at a time or one step at a time, and we're not distracted, that's like an opportunity to be reborn, to have our own birth every single moment, to be born again each moment. The great living Buddhist saint Thich Nhat Hanh once called this the miracle of mindfulness. My wife and I have been recently finishing the television program Game of Thrones. Have you heard of that? Game of Thrones? And we found, maybe there's a few fans in the audience today, I was thinking about this show where there's all these people who are doing terrible things and they're hurting each other and they're humiliating each other and they're killing each other. And that seems like a good metaphor for the Buddhist concept of the kleshas, the afflicting emotions. So the three root kleshas are, we say, ignorance, attachment, and aversion, but a bunch of other ones are added, sometimes pride, jealousy. And then we have all these other emotional states, such as quarrelsomeness, having the wrong form of livelihood, if like you're for a hitman or a crime boss, that's not a good job to have, right? Excessive lust, lying or deception, thinking about harming other people, the mind that is always trying to find a way to spend time with bad people, overeating, talking too much. We have these kinds of things all the time. And they're all kind of competing. Much of our lives is about these sort of clashes, these afflicting emotions competing for the throne, trying to rule our lives. They're trying to take over. And they're trying to dominate, to rule our mind. But the key thing is not to be distracted by one of these or all of them, but to rule our own minds. When we rule over such distractions, we're completely undistracted or awake, we fully realize what is called Tathagata Garbha, or Buddha nature, and we reveal ourselves, our own selves, as Buddha. To grasp that all of life is being born, having insights or little moments of enlightenment, and then dying, and repeating such cycles over and over again. We are born, we have moments of enlightenment, and then we die, over and over again. This is perhaps a good lesson to take from a holiday such as our holiday, the birth of the Buddha, Buddha Jayanti. As a step, the next step in that direction, we can study the vast teachings and path of Buddha Dharma with a qualified mentor or a guru, and that allows us to build on such foundations and put these powerful teachings into practice. I want to thank all of you so much for an opportunity to share these thoughts with you. Sarva Mangalam, and I want to ask you and say, may all things be auspicious. Thank you so much.